What's going on, everybody? I'm super excited to be here with you today because I'm super excited about this bottle. It's one of the most sought after new releases here in 2024, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on it. It is this Old Forester 1924 10-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, and in this video, I'm going to give you the forecast on whether or not I think this is a bottle you should hunt for or simply pass up. I'm a huge fan of the Whiskey Row series from Old Forester, with 1920 being probably one of my favorite bourbons of all time, and I'm hoping that this lives up to the hype or is even better than those whiskeys on the Whiskey Row. Welcome back into the Whiskey Weather channel, everybody. I am Brandon, and thank you for watching this forecast. If you're as excited about this bottle as I am, make sure you smash that like button below. And if you've already gotten your hands on a bottle and you've already tried it, what do you think of it? I've heard a lot of good things about it so far. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below as well. So let's jump right into it. And before we talk about what this tastes like, let's actually talk about what the juice in the bottle is and get to the specifics of it. So Old Forester 1924 is the fifth release along that Whiskey Row line that I just talked about, joining the 1870 original batch, the 1897 Bottle and Bond, the 1910 Old Fine Whiskey, and then the 1920 Prohibition Style, which is my personal favorite. And just like all of those, this is actually supposed to be an everyday shelf offering down the road. But right now, that's where the similarities stop. This comes in at an impressive 10 years old and 100 proof. The only other bottle on the Whiskey Row series that we know the age of, and we still don't even know the full age, is the Bottle and Bond, because it has to be at least 4 years old. And that is also 100 proof, just like this, but this is not a Bottle and Bond. So on the bottle, if you look at it, it says, in 1924, Owsley Brown took barrels of whiskey with different mash bills to a warehouse on Howard Street in Louisville, Kentucky, and bottled them as Old Forester. This 10-year-old expression honors the 100th anniversary of that occasion. So just talk to you about the previous four. This is where the biggest difference comes in. You heard in that he said a different mash bill. This is a different mash bill comparative to all of the other Whiskey Row series. This comes in with what Old Forester calls a new mash bill to the company. And you saw me do the air quotes, and that's because it's new to Old Forester, but not new to the company. Brown Forman, the owner of Old Forester and the head of all the distilling, this is actually one of their older mash bills. Unlike the other four, which all have the exact same mash bill, we're talking 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% barley, and that's the other Whiskey Row bottles. This comes in with a little more unique mash bill, 79% corn, 11% rye, and 10% barley. Does that ring a bell? Now that rings a bell because that is the exact same mash bill that the old black screw top Early Times Bottle and Bond used back when Brown Forman distributed it. And it's also the exact same mash bill that they use in King of Kentucky. Yes, that King of Kentucky. So the 2023 release of the King of Kentucky came with a 16-year age statement, 125.8 proof, and an MSRP of $300, all much higher than what you're getting here out of 1924. So this is basically just an older version of the Early Times Bottle and Bond that Brown Forman used to distribute, because that came in at 4 years, this comes in at 10 years, both at 100 proof. What made that Early Times Bottle and Bond so great was it was cheap, it was affordable. It came in at $30 or less for a 1 liter bottle of bourbon, where this one is much higher, and that's where the controversy comes in with this Old Forester 1924, is the price tag. And that price tag has an MSRP of $115, which is actually very high for an everyday shelfer that you're supposed to find. I got this at the Kroger here in Northern Kentucky for a $130 before tax. Why Kroger marked it up, I don't know. They've been doing that a little bit more so with those higher and allocated bourbons, so I'm not too happy about it. But is it worth $115? Is it worth $130? That's the answer I'm about to give you on whether or not I think you should spend your money on this or find something else. So without further ado, let's jump into it with this fresh pop. Get that out of here. Can we get a good pop? Not bad. As I pour it out, it's a pretty dark liquid. That's for sure. I mentioned I got this 130 bucks out at Kroger. Old Forester 1924 10-year. Let's give it a nose real quick. Ooh, wow. Brown sugar right off the bat. Got that vanilla, a little bit of cinnamon. The oak really comes through. This is a beautiful nose. This is one of the better noses that I've had on a bourbon in a while. Classic bourbon nose too. A little maple sugary coming through with that maple sugar and brown sugar, that maple syrup brown sugar. Very delicious. It's got that, I call it a creme brulee smell. Very sweet. I would expect a sweet palate out of this. You can smell the oak with the 10 years. So let's give it a drink and let's see what it tastes like. Okay, it's good. Right off the bat, the first thing that jumps off to my mind, it's not as sweet as the nose. It's still talking to me though, and as I talk, I still have that oak flavor coming through, and that's just off the first sip. Caramel vanilla right up front. Very classic bourbon. It's got a little bit more of that rye spice to it than I would have expected for an 11% rye. There is some of that sweetness, maybe a little maple sugar. I think it's that oak, that dark charred oak. Very good. This is a very delicious pour. I think the nose is personally better than the palate, but it's still talking to me. There's a lot of flavor in this, in the finish. It's a little bit of that cinnamon red hots that you get with some bourbon, but it's not overpowering. A nice mellow vanilla. I don't really get the brown sugar out of it that I got off the nose. Yeah, that nose is way sweeter than the palate comes through. All in all, I think it's fantastic. I would personally probably buy another bottle at $115. But what I really want to do is I want to compare this with one of my favorites, and that is also from the Whiskey Row series, and that is the 1920 Prohibition Style. A big shout out to my buddy Michael for the sample, as I am freshly out of the 1920. But it's one of my favorite bourbons out there. It's one of the ones I recommend to a lot of people as a bottle to grab because it's always available, and it's around 55 to 60 bucks. It's a great value. It's a great bourbon. 115 proof on this, 100 proof. So the expectations out of this, I would expect this to be a little bit on the softer side of things. It's 100 proof, where this comes in at 115, but probably has maybe a little bit more flavor. So let's do a side by side. Off the nose, very different. This actually is much sweeter. I've got more of a confectioner's sugar, maybe even a little bit of citrus out of that, where I continue to just get that maple syrup, brown sugar smell and nose off of the 1924. So yeah, confectioner's sugar, not nearly as sweet. It's higher proof, so let's see. The color's a little bit darker on the 1924, but not by much. Okay, that's sweet. It's got a little bit more of that tingle to it. 1920 is 115 proof. Yeah, just as I thought, this is a little more mellow, but I think that there's actually a lot more flavor out of the 1924 than the 1920. I'm surprised. I think the nose on this is better. I think that the palate on this is better. Is it $100 better? Is it $70 better? I wouldn't say so. I still think that this is a great value buy. The 1920 Old Forester, time and time again, 50 to 60 bucks should be a great buy. But I do think that the 1924 is the superior one of the two of them, according to my palate. Of course, everybody's palates are different. That's what makes the whiskey game so cool and so amazing. But first thoughts is I do think that I prefer this over the 1920, which kind of surprises me because this is one of my top 3, top 5 bourbons of all time. So this is really up there. Now, the question comes to whether or not you're willing to pay $115. If you had $115 to pay for this, I would say go ahead. But if you're on the fence, I would still say the 1920 would be a great bang for your buck. It's not like this one is leaps and bounds ahead of it. This is still very good. I just think that this takes the cake and edges it out just a little bit. So all in all, I'm very happy with this purchase. Very happy with this. At $115, I probably wouldn't buy it at $130 again at Kroger. So shout out to Kroger for jacking up your prices. But at $110 to $115, hoping that that number starts to come down. I've seen a lot of different higher prices on the secondary market. But yes, this is a bottle that I think if you have the means, go out and grab it. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching this. And if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below so you don't miss out some of those future forecasts down the road. So until the next time I see y'all, remember, it is always whiskey weather. Just please remember to drink responsibly. Cheers, y'all.